for this meeting of the Temple City Council. It is currently 8 minutes after 5. And please rise as, where'd it go? Please rise as Father Curtis Weidenfeld leads us in the invocation, followed by our pledge, which will be led by City Secretary Jan Llewellyn.
Begin as always by first placing ourselves in the presence of God, the font and foundation of all things, all truth. We stand in his presence and we offer our initiatives and endeavors to him, the good of this community, the good of Temple. And we ask that he guide by his providence this assembly, this discussion. Today, I wish for our reflection, a prayer given to accredited to a certain Cardinal Mary. It is known as a litany of humility. And as we reflect upon how we stand before others and before God, I thought it would be a good reflection for us. O Lord, meek and humble of heart, hear me. From the inordinate desire of being esteemed, deliver me. From the inordinate desire of being extolled, deliver me. From the corrupting desire of being honored and praised, deliver me. The desire of being preferred to others, and the desire of being consulted, and the desire of being approved, deliver me. From the fear of being humiliated, from the fear of being despised, from the fear of suffering rebuke, from the fear of being calumniated, from fear of being forgotten, ridiculed, wronged, and suspected, deliver me, O Lord. I pray that others may be loved more than I, O Lord, grant me the grace to desire it. The others may be esteemed more than I, O Lord, grant the grace to desire it. That in the opinion of the world, others may increase and I may decrease, O Lord, grant me the grace to desire it. That others may be chosen and I set aside, that others may be praised and I unnoticed, that others may be preferred to me, that others may grow in virtue, and that I may grow as you desire. O Lord, grant me the grace to desire it. Heavenly Father, we place this desire before you. We ask that you continue to grow in us the desire for humility and to always seek the good of the greater community through our generosity and self-giving. We ask this all through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. Before we dive right in tonight, I just wanted to take just a minute to acknowledge our loss. It was Wendell passed away a week ago Sunday. His funeral was this past Saturday, and we'll have his replacement on this coming Saturday with the elections drawing to a close. But again, someone we dearly miss. He was a great member of our team. We're sorry that he's gone, and our prayers, as always, are with those remaining behind. So please do keep his family, Carolyn, his spouse, and children and stepchildren and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, in your prayers. He's a great man and quite a loss for us all. So just, again, keep his family in your prayers. Okay. We'll now move on to public comments. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so as long as you signed up prior to this meeting. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And as always, no discussion or final action will be taken by the city council. And we have one person who has signed up. Ms. Brindley, you're up.
Thank you. My name is Nell Brindley. I live in Temple, Texas. We just recited our beautiful Pledge of Allegiance together, in which we said one nation under God. That's the foundation of our nation, our state, and our city. Turning to God is our greatest need. Elijah approached all the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him." But the people didn't answer him a word, from 1 Kings 18:21. Now, I am certainly not Elijah, but I can tell you that our greatest need in Temple is not more apartments, taxes, people, or parks. Our greatest need is God. I just want to say I'm so grateful to Ms. Morales. I didn't get to hear her pray today, but for all the times I've heard you pray before council meetings, I just want to thank you. Your prayers have blessed me and our city. That's been your greatest gift to our city, in my opinion, and that will be your legacy in my heart. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, it says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land." This may be the last time, and likely will be, that this group of people is gathered in this one place. So I'll just close with Joshua 24:15. "Choose this day whom you will serve." Can you say with me, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord"? Jesus Christ is Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Nell. Next item, we have 3 special recognitions. The first one tonight will be to recognize the Temple Police Department for receiving reaccreditation from the Texas Police Chiefs Association, presented by Mike Gentry, retired Chief of Police. Mr. Reynolds, please step forward, I think, with Mr. Gentry. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and Council, city staff, and citizens of Temple, it is my honor and privilege to be here with you tonight to recognize great accomplishment by your police department. So everyone is familiar with what it is we are discussing tonight. Some 20 years ago, the Texas Police Chiefs Association determined that it was a good thing and necessary to recognize those agencies that achieve the best standards in this profession. And in doing so, the accreditation program was started. As of today, there are 191 agencies in the state of Texas who have received accreditation. And there are another 57 agencies that are in the works to achieve this honor. And the Temple Police Department first was accredited 4 years ago. They were the 141st agency in Texas to so receive that honor. I have been fortunate to have been familiar with the Temple Police Department for many years, all the way back to Chief Tom Van Oy, who was a friend and colleague of mine, and all the chiefs since, including Chief Reynolds. And as a past president of the Texas Police Chiefs Association, a 46-year veteran of law enforcement in the state of Texas, and over 30 years of that as a chief of police, I can tell you that you have heard, I know, many times as to the quality of this agency and its personnel, the diligence that they illustrate in the protection of this community, the desires to do it well and to do it right. But again, tonight, I'm here to present you with empirical evidence to that fact, because the Temple Police Department has undergone a rigorous inspection. They have come into compliance with over 190 standards that are recognized as the state of the art in the law enforcement profession, inspected by outside experts, members, long tenured members of law enforcement who are familiar with this program. And they have come into the Temple Police Department and not only recognized that they were well worthy of the accreditation they received 4 years ago, but that they have maintained those standards to the degree that we can re-accredit them tonight. And so I want you to know that from this inspection and my personal knowledge of this organization, you should be proud of the Temple Police Department. Chief Reynolds and his staff strive daily to do the best that they can, understanding that this is a job that is defined by service, sacrifice, and trust. What we do for our communities in this profession requires that we develop a relationship based on trust. We have to be trusted by the people we serve. The Temple Police Department can say that they are. We also go into this profession understanding the responsibility to serve, to give of ourselves in order to accomplish this task, and a sacrifice when required to do so. And this agency has proven time and again, they're willing to do that very thing. It is a great moment in time and a source of pride for me that I can say the Temple Police Department, my friends and colleagues, are also among the cream of the law enforcement crop nationwide, certainly in the state of Texas. There are over 2,800 law enforcement agencies in the state of Texas. Only 191 have achieved this accreditation. That tells you that we are in rarefied air here. And you should be proud. The citizens of Temple should be proud of the extremely diligent, hard work this agency puts forward for the benefit of this community. I'm proud to call them my friends and to call them my colleagues. Chief, I'd like to take this moment and before all of these witnesses, present you with the certificate that recognizes your accreditation. Second time around for the city of Temple. Keep it going. You're setting the example, you're setting the pace in law enforcement, and I'm proud to call you my friend.
Thank you, sir. Y'all wouldn't mind, I'd really like to recognize the folks that really did the hard work on this, and I'll begin with Lieutenant Robert Mallett. If you come down here real quick. I know you're excited about this. Deputy Chief Alan Teston, it's a rigorous process. It's year round, working through prospects, policies, putting together all the information. And certainly they're just a couple of the folks that were incredibly powerful in getting us through the reaccreditation process. This was really my first run through, and I did very little of the legwork. I relied on these folks to get it accomplished. I couldn't be more proud of you. Based on Chief Gentry's oration, you probably know why I asked him to come. He's just very, very good. Checks in the mail, Chief. If you wouldn't mind, could we be able to take just a moment to get a picture up here? Mr. Mayor and Brent, would you come down and get in the picture with us?
Never have a picture taken that I'm at least not holding my head.
That reaccreditation, Chief, is a reaffirmation of what we already knew. So thank you, gentlemen, for all the work that you do for our citizens. So very much appreciated. Thank you all. Okay, next item is a proclamation to proclaim May 23rd as Preservation Month in the city of Temple. Kelly, are you here? Are you supposed to come forward? I think so. Otherwise, I'm reading to nobody. I think it's supposed to come right here.
Oh, right there.
Yeah,
Oh.
so I can read this and present it to you. This is how we've always done it. I only know how to do this one way. So if I may, I might like to read this proclamation. Whereas the National Trust for Historic Preservation established May as Historic Preservation Month in 1973 to promote historic places for the purpose of instilling community pride, promoting heritage tourism, and showing the social and economic benefits of historic preservation. In 2023, the theme is People Saving Places, recognizing the great work of saving places in ways big and small and inspiring others to do the same. Whereas historic preservation is relevant for all communities and people of every age from all walks of life and backgrounds. Temple continues to demonstrate its commitment to preservation as it grows and develops through ongoing protection of its historic neighborhoods and the recognition, rehabilitation, and restoration of historic properties. Whereas National Preservation Month 2023 is a special event designed to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of heritage that has shaped us as a people and as a community. Now, therefore, I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Preservation Month in the City of Temple, Texas, and I encourage all citizens of Temple to join with others across the nation who are participating in special observances that draw attention to the importance of saving our community history and preserving our historic buildings and sites for future generations. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand on the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, on this 4th day of May 2023. So congratulations. Thank you for all the work that you've done. And it appears I may have put you on the spot. Would you like to say to continue that theme? Would you like to say some words?
So I would like to invite our chairman for the Historic Preservation Board, Justin Hill, to just say a couple words about preservation. Thank you for taking a moment to recognize all the work that not only the board does, but just members of our community that participate in our historic preservation activities. So
Great.
Thank you all, and thank you, Jessica, for taking the time to be with our board and provide some feedback. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. These will be few words, so you don't have to start the timer. I'll be brief. Ladies and gentlemen, council members, today I would like to talk to you about the importance of historical preservation, since May is Preservation Month. Historical preservation is a conversation with our past about our future. It provides us with opportunities to ask what parts of our past can we preserve for the future. Through historic preservation, we look at history in different ways, ask different questions of the past, and learn new things about our local history and ourselves. Historic preservation is not just about preserving buildings or monuments. It is about preserving our local heritage and character. It is about preserving the stories of our forebearers and the places where they lived. It can also educate and remind the current population about what came before them. Historic preservation is also a component of economic development. Historic buildings and sites can be used to attract tourists and businesses to an area. In conclusion, historic preservation is an important part of our local cultural heritage and soul. It allows us to connect with our past. Historic preservation is an important way for us to transmit our understanding of the former to future generations. Thank you.
Good work. Our next presentation will be to proclaim May 15th through the 21st, 2023 as National Salvation Army Week. Lieutenant David Beckham and his lovely wife, Dawn. Y'all expected to do this.
We followed the other's example.
There you go. Okay. All right. If I may, I'd like to read this proclamation. The proclamation reads, whereas the Salvation Army's only business in the community of Temple, Texas, as everywhere, is still the human business, undertaken with joy for the family of humankind to the greater glory of God. And whereas through sound, innovative, and professional services, the Salvation Army serves the people of Temple with unshakable faith in all, no matter how desperate the situation, and views all people with possibilities. Whereas the Salvation Army acts on behalf of all the residents of our community with neither salvation nor any other condition prerequisite, nor expecting any thanks, yet nonetheless welcoming community support. Now therefore I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 13th through 21st, 2023 as National Salvation Army Week in the City of Temple, Texas, and I do urge all citizens to join me in saluting the steadfast men and women who bind up the brokenhearted and renew the heart of our community by their quiet service of compassion. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand on the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, on this 4th day of May, 2023. Thank you all so much for all of your hard work. I'd like to take just a minute and say a few words. Thank you, Dawn.
Well, we certainly want to say thank you
The Salvation Army is a faith-based program. We are a church, and all of our programs are designed to hopefully give us an opportunity to leading individuals and families into the saving knowledge of the gospel. Our programs are housing focused, which means the end game with all of our programs is to put our clients into sustainable housing. And I would say one of the rarest things about our programs that we offer that other agencies do not offer is that our caseworkers come alongside certain clients that need additional support and encouragement. They can do that for up to 2 years. And we do that to prevent the revolving door of homelessness where people are housed and then come right back again. And I would say that proudly that because we have a wonderful, loving and just a great staff, that I'm proud to say that our success rate with that is well over 90%. And we just have a great team. And we appreciate the city of Temple's prayers and support. And we ask that you continue to pray and support us. Thank you.
Thank you both for your work for our community. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. All items that are under this section are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from this consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Council members, I don't believe that we're going to pull anything tonight, right? Leave everything as is. All right, then with that, council, I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda, which is items 6A through 6T.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda item 6A through 6T. Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, please cast your vote. Just a minute. Item 5 passes 5 votes to 0. I'm sorry, I believe that was item 6. My mistake. Moving on, pardon? Refreshing. That's what I had to do. Item 7 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from multifamily 2 to neighborhood services on 0.127 plus or minus acres described as Moore's Addition, Block 9, north 50 feet of south. Hold on, let me, that's a lot. Block 9, north 50 feet of south, half of lot 1 in the city of Temple, Texas, Bell County, addressed as 111 North 11th Street, tax appraisal parcel ID 31198. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I butchered that one.
No, well done. Thankfully, our mapping folks understand what that means. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council. And so this is the location. You can see near Barton and 11th. And so looking at the zoning map, you can see that this is currently part of a multifamily 2 zoning area or district. And once again, it's 0.127 acres. And they're requesting neighborhood service. And this is for a small retail business or shop. They plan on taking the existing building and rehabbing it. So in line with Preservation Month, certainly. And then on-site parking could be provided to the rear of the lot. And they do have room based on the number of parking spaces required for a retail structure of this size. But they could also have additional opportunities to expand parking with a shared parking agreement for neighboring properties. This is located in the downtown neighborhood planning district. And so here you can see what those district boundaries include. The plan identifies 11th Street as a pedestrian connector for future trail, essentially. And this is located within the Gateway sub-district, so providing kind of the first impression for travelers into the downtown area. And the plan also calls for infill redevelopment, but also the reuse of existing structures. And so looking at the comprehensive plan, this is identified as future downtown core property. And so it's consistent with the plan. Also in terms of the Trails Master Plan, a proposed neighborhood connector trail along 11th Street. So in the frontage here. And so here you can see it's a small house, less than 1,000 square feet, but a proposed small shop. And this is the view from the alley on the right. And so adjacent property to the north, including a funeral home, adjacent property to the east, you have a mid-rise apartment complex, and then a home adjacent property to the south. And then on the west is vacant. So 16 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet, and 3 responses were received in favor, representing 6 properties, and so none in opposition. So staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission at their April 3rd meeting recommend approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler?
Just to make sure, you did say that the parking lot just to the north of that would be used. That's okay. And that's something that-
Sure, in terms of if they wanted additional parking, then certainly working with the funeral home or any of the other nearby property owners. Yes, very well.
Very good. Okay, there being nothing else, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. We ask you step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Okay, there being none of either, then council, I will entertain a motion on item 7.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item 7 passes 4 votes to 0. Congratulations. Moving on to item 8 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from 2-family dwelling to planned development 2-family dwelling on 0.126 plus or minus acres described as Freeman Heights, Block 63, Lot 1 in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 1115 West Avenue I and 901 South 23rd Street, tax appraisal district ID, tax appraisal parcel 50573.
All right, this one is also related to existing structures and really the preservation of those within that particular neighborhood. So on the left, of course, you can see it's near the intersection of 23rd and I, and then you can see the aerial to the right. So it's 2 existing dwelling units on a 2-family zoned piece of property. So despite the fact this is 2-family, as you all probably know, 2-family is a designation for duplexes, attached units. These are 2 separated units, and so the ability to expand or even renovate or even to rebuild if they were ever destroyed by fire or other acts of nature would not be in compliance. It would not be able to rebuild. So they're requesting to rezone to add the planned development to be able to renovate, potentially expand. And so you can see just kind of the lot configuration there that was platted in 1891. So one of our earliest plats, our subdivision plats within the city of Temple. The structures were built in 1923, and 1918.
Wow.
And so once again, these are legal non-conforming structures that would need to be rezoned to be able to be rebuilt or expanded in the future. And so per section 925 of non-conforming uses and structures within our Unified Development Code, the size and function of the non-conforming use must not be expanded. And once again, if it were destroyed by fire, as an example, it could not be rebuilt. So on the right, you can see a survey of the existing structures, call it SF number 1 and SF number 2. And we have circled the setbacks. And so part of that is also to essentially legalize the non-conforming setbacks. And bottom left, you can see the table of what those setbacks are, including a existing setback of 21.6 feet for the front, which 2F zoning requires a 25-foot. And of course, these are structures that were built before our first zoning ordinance. And so examples of what those elevations would look similar to once permit has been issued and the construction is completed. And through our comprehensive plan, this area is identified as urban residential. And so single family and 2F considered appropriate. Also, no impact on the Trails Master Plan. The Midtown Neighborhood Planning District, this is in the middle of that. And once again, it discusses infill and conservation, neighborhood conservation, and this is certainly in line with that concept. And so you can see a lot of history there, but the buildings do need some work to be able to preserve them. And so property to the east going clockwise, starting top left-hand corner, and then to the south, and then on the north. So it's surrounded by residential. And so notices were mailed out to property owners within 200 feet, and that was 27 total. And we just received one in response, and that was in disagreement. So staff and Planning and Zoning Commission both recommend approval, subject to the PD conditions, that the 2F, 2-family zoning district standards do apply with the exception of those setbacks that that were listed previously, and that the 2 main existing structures may be rebuilt, rehabbed. The additional construction must comply with the 2F district. That the lot is considered a non-conforming lot of record, and which would allow for the width and other standards for the lot that are non-conforming to be legal. That it would comply with the approved site plan and elevations, and that the director of planning would have some authorization to approve minor changes. And that is all that I have, and happy to answer any questions.
Chandler, council, any questions?
The one that disapproved, I think she said it was because it was so close to her property. She felt like it was really tight. Is that an alley that's going through there? It's not an alley, is it? Through the back end that connects the two,
Let's see.
that kind of
No,
bisects it?
that is not there. It's not separated by an alley. That property is not. There's an alley behind
And I didn't see an
that
existing
particular property. It's
fence.
kind of an
around.
unusual circumstance there,
Okay,
where you typically have alleys between each
Mhm.
row of homes, but
Right.
not in that block.
okay. And I did not see a fence. Did I miss that? I didn't see any kind of fencing for either
Correct.
home. Okay,
Correct.
all right, thank you.
Mhm.
Council? Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Chandler. This item is also subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium or raise your hand on the virtual platform.
Alan Lytle. I live here in Temple, Texas. Just got a quick question. You mentioned that right now, with the zoning as it is, if one of those houses was to burn down, they would not be allowed to rebuild it. That's correct. With this zoning change, and they do all this nice fancy remodeling, if one of them burns down, can they rebuild it?
Yes, sir. It would be-
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Anyone on the virtual platform? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lytle. There being no one else that wants to participate in the public hearing, I will close the public hearing at this time, and council will entertain a motion on item number 8.
I'll make a motion for approval presented.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. I've got, oh, here we go. Item number 8 passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item 9 is a first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning request from light industrial to heavy industrial on 14.03 plus or minus acres described as Lot 2, Block 1, Temple Industrial Park, Section 26. Address is 2106 Trino Road, Temple, Texas, in Bell County. The property ID is 475102. Mr. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is for Temple Economic Development Corporation property within our Northwest Industrial Park. As you can see here, 14 plus acres on Trino Road that is currently zoned light industrial. And so the request is to rezone to heavy industrial. The subdivision plat was approved in 2017, and the neighbor, adjacent neighbor, actually across to the west, a drainage easement is Palladio Chemical Plant, which is zoned heavy industrial with a conditional use permit for a chemical plant that was approved in 2017. This is located within Temple Independent School District. And so just a little bit of background that at the April 3rd Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, so the neighbor to the south, PFG, Performance Food Group, expressed concerns just about the compatibility of some of the heavy industrial uses, referencing the Palladio Chemical Plant, which is right next door, and that just the compatibility in general. And so that was heavily considered, I think, by Planning and Zoning Commission in a recommendation to add a plan development to prohibit uses that they thought were not compatible with PFG in particular: animal feedlot, chemical plant, and petroleum storage facility. So looking at the zoning map, you can see the light pink is light industrial. The purple to the west, that is Palladio, the chemical plant, which is heavy industrial. And so you zoom out a bit, you look at our industrial park from a larger scope, you can see that most of it is light industrial. Future development plan just identifies this as future industrial, doesn't distinguish between light or heavy, but both are presumably consistent with our future development plan. Looking at existing utilities for water and sewer, there's an 8-inch water line in Trino Road and an 8-inch wastewater line also in Trino. And so here is the site. Looking to the west at Palladio Chemical Plant, and to the south to PFG and their facilities. To the east towards the concrete batch plant, and to the southeast to the new FedEx distribution center. So looking at the uses, comparing what is allowed in light industrial versus heavy industrial. So we've highlighted some of those key uses to the right in the heavy industrial column with a conditional use permit, animal feedlot, brick kiln or smelter, chemical plant. By right, soil and mineral extraction and store and petroleum storage. And then also sexually oriented business. So 6 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. We actually did not receive a notice in return. But at the P and Z meeting on April 3rd, just once again, to reiterate that they voted to approve the zoning, the request for HI, but to add a plan development to limit some of those uses that they thought were incompatible with the character. And those specific uses were petroleum storage, animal feedlot, and chemical plant. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Mr. Chandler, I assume you said chemical plant, that would also preclude any chemical storage. Is that,
Yes, sir.
is that correct? I mean,
Yes.
obviously,
Yes.
but, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler? This item is also subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, we ask you step forward, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the platform.
Neil Brindley, Temple, Texas. Mr. Chandler, did I hear you correctly? Did I see the slide, read it correctly, that a sexually oriented business is considered heavy industrial?
So the answer is no, but it's allowed in heavy industrial, and this is really a statutory requirement to allow them in some location. We can't just prohibit them throughout the entire city. So at some point, and a lot of cities have done this, if they're going to allow them, they allow them in only the most intense zoning district. So that's the correlation. But it is allowed in heavy industrial.
That's insane. And I'm urging council to please not vote for this, to please not change this. Temple has, wonderful light industrial. That's kind of what we were going for when we opened the industrial park, was having clean industry here in Temple. And clean can mean a lot of things, obviously. And so I'm just urging you to please don't do this. Don't change this zoning. I know y'all, it's, you want to accommodate the new businesses coming into Temple, but please don't do this.
Ms. Brindley, that's just, to clarify, any business that might locate there, there's not a sexually oriented business being proposed there. It's just saying that, that the only place a sexually oriented business could locate, correct me if I'm wrong, would be in heavy industrial. Okay, so again, that's not something that's on the table. Okay, just heads up. Next.
Good evening. My name is Frank Case. I live at 6009 Cliff Lane in Temple, Texas. I'm representing PFG this evening. We're discouraging the idea of the change as well for a lot of obvious reasons. We're in food distribution. We also do active cutting of live, of meat, right? Fresh meat, fresh cut meat in our place as well. And we service all of the Central Texas area, but not just that. We also go as far to the east as Lake Pontchartrain, as far west as El Paso, far north as the Kansas state line, and then into the valley. So we cover a lot of area with the food that we distribute. Don't like the idea of it going heavy industrial for that reason, along with just the challenges that go with, getting in and out off of Lucius McKelvey. We're at 4141 there. As it showed in the map, we're just south of the proposal. And right now, we're really, really tight. We receive about 500 trucks a week inbound. Most of that's all domestic. We ship out almost 400 trucks going out to deliver. Causes a lot of traffic jam. We welcome the neighbors next door with FedEx. But as you may or may not know, FedEx has to use Lucius McKelvey as well. And then you've got right now, currently, you've got the chemical trucks that come out of there. Since they made the other piece there of the heavy industrial and they brought in the chemical plant there, we've had all kinds of challenges in the early morning with the inbounds. We've had the police called a couple times as a part of that as well. It's been a real challenge to say the least. And now, of course, like I said, we're adding in some traffic from our friends at FedEx. So we just feel like moving into heavy industrial is not a good idea. And we would discourage you to vote such. And ask that you do. So any questions for me?
Council? No, thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Case.
very much.
Alan Lytle, Temple, Texas. So I understand what Mr. Chandler told us. This property is owned by the Economic Development Company Corporation. So it's not actually owned by somebody who's going to develop it. So why now decide to change it to heavy use, heavy industrial? Why not wait till somebody actually wants to build something there and let them come convince you it's a good idea?
That's that there is a proposal from Palladio now, and that's why they're coming forward. They don't own it, but they have what's called a right of first refusal on it.
They're the ones that are already there, right? The chemical company.
Correct.
They're gonna go another extension of the chemical company?
It would just be a facility that would support their current facility.
Okay.
Whether it was, yes,
Really, the important thing to understand is it's a rezoning request and it's
Correct.
really not relevant who's requesting. What you have to look at in the zoning request is the uses that are allowed. Because
Okay.
even if someone comes in and says, if there are allowed uses 1 through 5, and I'm going to only do use 1, but if you rezone it to that use, then they can use it for anything that's allowed. So it's really, the most important thing right now is not really who may or may not be using the property in the future, but really looking at what's the requested zoning and all of the possible uses that are allowed under that requested zoning, and whether those are all appropriate uses for that piece of property, regardless of who owns it. Does that make sense?
Well, that part makes sense, except like I say, the fact that did not know that this other company was considering that. That's why the Economic Development Company was asking for this.
Yes.
Normally, you would not expect them to ask for rezoning
Mhm.
unless they're trying to sell it to somebody or without having predisposed somebody wants to buy it.
But
That,
what,
that key part was missing.
right. And what council's being asked to consider tonight really is regardless of who may or may not ultimately be
Yes.
locating there. In
Yes.
general, is this an appropriate use for that
Right.
property? So that's what they'll be answering tonight.
I said too much. Anybody else?
Good evening. Bruce Linhart. I live at 9 Wide Earp in Belton, but I'm representing PFG tonight. Our facility was built in this light industrial complex back in 1998. The reason that facility was put there was because of the zoning in that area. And going to a heavy industrial zoning in there would open up, if we do this one parcel of property here, or if y'all approve it, then it opens up more of them to come in as heavy industrial. And the concern that we have about that is that we are a food service distributor. We hire about 575 people at this facility here in Temple. So we have a rather large footprint as far as employer. But our concern is mixing heavy use with what we do in food service distribution is just not a good idea. It's not a good recipe to have that. So what I'm asking is that y'all deny the heavy use zoning change. That way, we don't have to worry about heavy chemicals being used close to our facility and in close proximity of our facility, so that we can supply the high quality food that we do to the restaurants around the Central Texas area as well as everywhere else. These are restaurants that we all eat at daily, and we take our food service quality extremely serious. So, thank you.
Good. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Is anyone on the virtual platform? Okay, very good. If there's no one else wishing to speak, council, I will close this public hearing. And if there are no further questions or comments for Mr. Chandler, entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. I am the council member that represents the industrial park, and I'd like to make a motion to disapprove the rezoning.
So this motion would disapprove the zoning change and would also negate planning and zoning's recommendations, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the whole property remains light industrial.
A vote in favor of the motion would keep the property zoned LI.
Right.
So if that's your desire, you would vote in the affirmative tonight.
Very good. We have a motion by Councilmember Walker. You have a second? Did you? Thank you. Very good. We have a motion by Councilmember Walker, and we have a second by Councilmember Long to deny the rezoning request. Council, please cast your vote. The denial of the zoning request passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item 10 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing an amendment to Chapter 14 of the City of Temple Code of Ordinances, Article 3, requirements for MFU operators, Section 1431, permitted locations for MFU operation, to add the Neighborhood Services Zoning District to the list of zoning districts where the mobile food units may operate. Mr. Chandler.
All right, I'm going to keep this super simple and super short. So food trucks are currently allowed for Chapter 14 in the zoning districts highlighted in green. They're essentially all commercial, retail, and agriculture zoning districts. So ag, TMed, Office 1, Office 2, general retail, commercial, central area, light industrial, heavy industrial, and limited mixed use zoning districts. This would merely add neighborhood service to that list to allow food trucks with the food truck, MFU permit to be allowed in a parking lot for one of these businesses and neighborhood service. Smaller convenience stores without gas pumps, as an example, barber shops, salons, those type of uses. Staff recommends approval of the code change as proposed. Do you have any questions?
Easy, thank you. This item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this may do so. Please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand. Mr. Lytle?
Stated my name, do I need to state it again?
Each item.
Mr. Lytle, Alan Lytle, Temple, Texas. Does this mean that off number 7, you voted on tonight, they can park a food truck behind this little retail store in that neighborhood?
It means,
change this
it's a good question. It means that would potentially allow a food truck with a mobile food unit permit, but they would have to have paving. They has to be on paved surface. There are a number of criteria with the permit. Sure. Well, they don't have a parking lot yet. They would for the retail. So, however, if they their parking will be limited to small lot. They're probably going to have just enough to service the retail. So it would be a business decision as to whether they would want to occupy 2 of 4 or 5 spaces that they're going to have with a mobile food unit. But
with
to
this
answer your
change,
question,
yes.
yes, it's potentially allowed for them to make that business decision whether they want to apply and whether it meets the criteria.
Just as a reminder as well that food trucks can't park in required parking space for a building.
Yes.
So if they're
that's-
just meeting the minimum parking standards, they wouldn't be able to take up parking spaces. And there's also distance requirements from structures that they would have to meet. So it's unlikely that a food truck would be able to park on a small lot.
I understand that. Just wanted to point out that this is one area that is quite possible that a food truck could be parked in a residential area and operating a business in a residential area because of because of the service.
There, yes,
But
there
the-
are, yes, there are some residential uses around there, but it's really a mix of urban uses.
But I'm sure there
multifamily.
are other NS areas of similar
Sure.
location.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Are you pro or anti food truck?
I love food trucks. I don't think they need to be a neighbor.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on the platform? No? All right. At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Council will entertain a motion on item 10.
Motion to approve item 10.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, please cast your vote. Item 9 passes. I'm sorry, mine didn't either. There we go. Item 10 passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item 11, is consider adopting a resolution approving a development or site plan in accordance with ordinance 2005-4025 of 2 building pad sites with a total of 15,860 square feet of retail space on Lot 1, Block 1, Saunders Edition, a non-residential subdivision in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 9012 West Adams Avenue, and on lots 1 and 2, Block 1, Suite Edition, a non-residential subdivision in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 8924 and 8938 West Adams Avenue. Mr. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And as the 2005 ordinance is referenced, and it's on the screen, requires, this is one of the kind of our early plan development ordinances, requires a site plan to come back to P and Z and to council. And so you can look at the maps on the right and you can see that it's actually currently 3 lots that are in the process of being consolidated into a single lot with an amending plat that is in progress now. Access would be from Adams Lane. As you know, it parallels Adams Avenue. And so you can see in the bottom right-hand corner how those roads would provide access. And once again, it's just from Adams Lane. Our DRC review for the site plan occurred on March 20th. No issues were identified. And so here you can see the property. Part of it is wooded and the rest of it is open, but you can see the adjacent 7-Eleven. You can see other Adams Island commercial, which is this plat. These are developments called Wapiti Office Complex that are just to the west of this proposed development. And so this development would include 2 retail buildings, 122 by 65 foot to be specific, for a total of 15,860 square feet. What is proposed are 5 individual suites within each of those, so a total of 10. In terms of meeting the parking requirements of 1 space per 250 square feet, 64 spaces are required their site plan is showing 86. And so here you can see the proposed elevations. Landscaping will be addressed at permit to ensure that at least the minimum of 5% landscaping is provided. Keep in mind that much of the western portion of this development is in the floodplain, also heavily wooded, and would be preserved as well. Public facilities, wastewater, there's a 15-inch sewer line on the western boundary, a 14-inch water line in Adams Avenue. And in terms of the sidewalk, to be consistent with our Trails Master Plan, but also other developments along Adams Lane, they would provide a 10-foot sidewalk or shared use paths, that would allow for biking as well. And so public notice, just now per legal interpretation, looking at these SITE cases in which you have a site plan attached to a previous plan development ordinance. It's been determined that a sign and notices to property owners is not required. We had been doing that as a courtesy, but it also creates a lot of confusion in terms of what's the scope of the discretion. And so this, of course, the notice is limited to just posting on the agenda with all the other ordinance items. And so staff recommends approval with the following conditions: substantial compliance with the site plan and elevations that we saw before, that the landscaping meet our minimum standards, that additional landscaping can be provided and will pop out areas or parking islands, essentially, that the Director of Planning and Development may approve minor modifications, and major changes would come back to Planning and Zoning and Council. So at the April 3rd meeting for Planning and Zoning, they voted 6-0 per staff recommendation and the conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know the applicant engineer is here to answer any as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions? Nope. All right, there being none, council will entertain a motion on item number 11.
I'll make a motion to approve item 11.
Have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item 11 passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item 12, is consider adopting a resolution approving the final plat of Lisher Addition, a 4.5049 plus or minus acre 2-lot 1-block residential subdivision situated in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 2613 Riverside Trail with an applicant requested exception to fire hydrant requirements. Mr. Chandler.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And on the left side, you can see that this is located in what we refer to as the donut hole. So it's in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, not our city limits. On the right, you can see the aerial that shows the entire property, and what is being platted includes one single-family residence and some accessory structures. And so it's a total of 4.5 acres, a proposed 1-block 2-lot residential subdivision. On the right, you can see be a lot 1, the smaller, and that would include the existing home. And once again, this is in the donut hole. And the reason that you all are seeing this as opposed to Bell County Commissioners Court is because it's located within the donut hole. That's one of the areas that was identified that you all would review and we would process, and our standards would apply. It requires city council approval because of the UDC exception to the fire hydrant requirement of 600 fire hydrant every 600 feet. And the plat was reviewed by DRC on January 23rd. and deemed administratively complete on March 30th. The 30-day shot clock, as we sometimes refer to it in terms of the statutory requirements for the governing body to review and take action within 30 days of administrative completeness. That shot clock was waived by the applicant for consideration of the exception. So let's get to the exception. There's currently a 2-inch water line along Riverside that does provide water to the existing residents there. And the 2-inch water line would also not support an additional hydrant. The existing fire hydrant is 800 feet from the existing house. And no home is proposed right now on lot 2. It doesn't mean that in the future they couldn't add one, but it's still within, it's closer to the fire hydrant than the existing 800 feet to the current house. Additional water service could be provided by Clearwater through a well, subject to their approval, of course. Fire services are currently provided using the existing fire hydrant, and that would remain the same. So existing conditions would prevail if the exception is approved. And our fire department, specifically our fire marshal, has been actively involved in this and recommends approval of this exception. And planning and zoning also recommended approval by 9-0 at the April 17th meeting, including the exception. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, anything for Brian? Very good. There being none, no further discussion. Council, I'll entertain a motion on item 12.
Make a motion that we approve.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item 12 passes 4 votes to 0. It is currently 6:16. Thank you all for attending tonight, and this meeting is adjourned.